Hello, I'm Michael Topham, technical writer for digital photo, and welcome to this first of two masterclass videos that's going to explore all there is to know about Photoshop's Type tool. The Type tool is an excellent one to use when you're looking to add text to your images, personalize a photo, or even replace text that might already be in a shot. One of the best things about the Type tool is that it's relatively straightforward to use, and the results can be absolutely stunning, so it's well worth knowing what's involved and how to control text when you fancy adding it to one of your shots. In this first Type tool video, we'll be taking a look at the tool in its very simplest form, to see how we can add basic text beneath an image, and see how to pick out a font that's suitable for the type of image you're looking to add your type to. We'll also be exploring the character and paragraph palettes, as well as taking a look at the text layer style, to see how we can make the most of 12 different blending options. In the second masterclass video, that you'll also find on the CD, we'll take on a bit more of a challenge. We'll see how we can add realistic and convincing text onto a textured surface. The video will take a good look at how we can warp text and make it blend seamlessly onto a surface by changing the blending mode and applying a displacement map. All of this though will be carried out a little later in the second masterclass video. The Type tool is found beneath or to the side of the Pen tool in the toolbox, and is recognisable by the big letter T. If you want to access the Type tool quickly and you're used to using keyboard shortcuts to speed up your workflow, just hit the letter T on the keyboard. Holding down on the Type tool from the toolbox, we have four options to choose from: the horizontal Type tool, the vertical Type tool, the horizontal Type mask tool, and the vertical Type mask tool. In this video, we're going to be using the horizontal Type tool. We can now load up the image that we're going to be adding a little bit of informative text beneath, so just go into the Start Images folder on the CD and load up the file golfcourse.jpg into Photoshop. To create the new document that we're going to paste this image into and then add the text onto, just go up to File in the menu bar and then down to New, and then make sure that the preset is set to Custom from the list. Change the unit value from centimeters to pixels, and then input a width of 2816 and a height of 1769. The resolution needs to be set to 300 and the color mode needs to be set to RGB color. Also, just check that the background contents is set to white. We can just hit OK to create our new document. Going back to our golf course image, we need to just go across into the toolbox and select the Move tool, and then just position it a little bit lower before holding down Shift on the keyboard and then just dragging this into our new document to position it centrally. We're now all done with our main golf image, so just go back to that and just close it down. We need to create a little bit more room beneath the image to add our added text, and the best way of doing this is just to move this golf image up very slightly. So just go up to View in the menu bar and then down to Rulers, and then pull down a guideline to around 1.5 centimeters. Just make sure that you can see your Layers palette, so just go up to Window and then down to Layers. Make sure you're selected on your golf image layer, and then just hit the upwards arrow on the keyboard just to move that image up very slightly until the top of the image just hits that guideline. Once you've done that, you can just clear the guidelines by going to View and then down to Clear Guides. Now that we've created our perfectly laid out document and have created plenty of space beneath the image for our additional text, we can go back to the toolbox and pick out the Type tool. Moving into the options bar, we can take control of the font style, the font size, and the anti-aliasing method. Anti-aliasing helps produce smooth edge type by partially filling any of the text edge pixels. So if you're looking to blend the edges of your type into a background, for example, it's very important that you change the anti-aliasing method from none to smooth. Moving further along in the options bar, you can also see that we can change the text color from the options bar, but we can also do that from the character palette. To load the character and paragraph palettes very quickly, just move a little bit further along and just click on this small little icon, and that will load up the character and paragraph palettes quickly onto your screen. To toggle this palette on and off, you can just click on and off this icon in the options bar. Click on the paragraph palette alongside the character palette, and then just click on Center Text, before going back into the character palette. Change the font size to around 36, but there's no need to worry about changing the font just yet. Clicking on the document below, we can now add our text, and for this example, I'm just going to give it the name Lilybrook Golf Course. Now I think the size of this text is working quite well beneath this image, but I'm not so sure about the font, and I don't really think it's complementing the image too well. Just before we flick through some of the different fonts in Photoshop, I'm just going to rearrange my palette so you can see both my character palette and my layers palette clearly on the screen. So I'll just move my layers palette across very slightly and take note of that text layer there that we've created with the type tool. So the best way to scroll through these fonts is just to highlight our text and then highlight the font in the character palette. We can now use the downwards arrow key on the keyboard just to scroll through the long list of fonts that Photoshop has to offer until we find one that we think really suits this image. Once you're happy with the text of your choice, just go to the end of the text and just hit Return on the keyboard to make our second line of text. On this line, I'm just going to add a little bit more information about this particular golf hole. The text is appearing a little large for my liking on this second line, so I need to decrease the font size. I can easily do that by just selecting the text and then just choosing a new font size inside the character palette, but I'm going to show you a neat and precise way of changing the font size. Just highlight the font size and then use either the up or downwards arrows keys on your keyboard to either increase or decrease the size of your text. I'm looking to decrease the size of this text on this second line, so I'm just hitting the downwards arrow key, and as I do so there, you can see the value is decreasing in the character palette, and I'm going to settle for a font size of around 22. So what if I fancy just moving this second line of text a little bit closer to the first line of text, just to decrease the size of that gap there? Well, this can be done by changing the leading value inside the character palette. And we can either do it manually by choosing one of the values here, or equally we can just highlight the text and then just highlight the leading inside the character palette and then just hit the upwards arrow key on the keyboard just to position that second line of text a little bit closer to the first line. On this instance, I think I'm going to go for a leading value of around 20, and we can see there that the second line is now much closer to the first line, and we've decreased the size of the gap there. The final line is just going to be made up of my name, so I'm just going to type in Michael Topham, but then again, I just need to decrease the size of this text to keep it consistent. So I'm just going to highlight this, and then highlight the font size in the character palette, and hit the downwards arrow key, just to reduce the size down to around 16, and I'm rather happy with that. The colour of my text is a tad harsh in black at the moment, and I think a softer pastel colour would complement the image much more. Changing the text colour is very straightforward. Just highlight the text before going back into the character palette and clicking on the colour. I'm going to use the colour picker to choose a much softer blue tone from the sky. But make sure you take a few colour samples to see which works best. And when you're happy with the new text colour, just go across and hit OK. And then just click at the end of the text and you'll see there how the text colour has changed from black to this lovely blue tone. If at any stage you fancy like changing the text in your document, say from lower to uppercase, there's no need to remove the text layer and start all over again with the caps lock key depressed. This can take quite a bit of time, and there's a much quicker way to be had from inside the character palette. Just make sure you're selected obviously on your text layer in the layers palette, and just select the text that you'd like to change from lowercase to uppercase. Heading back into the character palette and moving beneath the colour there, we can see that we've got 8 small text icons. Selecting the small caps icon immediately turns the text into uppercase, and if you fancy adding bold or italic effects, or maybe even an underline or a strike through, there are icons here for these options too. Another great thing to experiment with when we're using text is the text layer style. From the layer style, we can control the text blending options, and it can be accessed by either double-clicking on your text layer in your layers palette, or by just going down to the bottom of the layers palette and clicking on Add Layer Style, and then just choose Blending Options from the list. On the left are 12 different blending options to experiment with, and more than one of these are selectable at any one time. So make sure you run through all of these and check out the different effects they can add to your text. For my text, I'm going to add an inner shadow, and I'm also going to add a drop shadow, but I think I'm just going to reduce that drop shadow very slightly by taking hold of the opacity slider and changing it from a value of 100% down to around 50%. When you're happy with the effects that you've created in the layer style, just hit OK to apply them. Any layer style effects that you do decide to add will show up beneath the text layer in the layers palette. And just like layers, you can click on and off the eye visibility icons to see the difference with and without the effect. If you fancy removing a layer style from the text at any time, you can do this very easily by just taking hold of it and then placing it on the trash icon at the bottom of the palette. A common term that's often referred to when using text is rasterize. When we want to apply effects to text, such as filters or displacement maps, these type of commands and tools aren't available for type layers. So it's important that we must rasterize the type first, which in effect turns the type layer into a normal layer, so the effects can be made. We'll see how and when it's appropriate to rasterize a layer a little later on in the second masterclass video. So there we are. We've taken a good study of the type tool and witnessed how it can be put to good use for personalizing your shots. Adding text with the type tool to a flat document like this one is relatively easy to do, but remember to take your time to make sure it looks as effective as possible. So what if you fancy adding text to more unusual textures in an image that has plenty of folds and bumps? Well, in the second masterclass video, we'll see how we can add convincing text to textures using blending modes and a displacement map. I hope you've enjoyed watching this type tool video, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video very shortly. Bye for now.